Good evening. This is Defacto Review, a weekly analysis of Mongolia's latest political, economic, and social issues by economist and columnist Mr. Charles Herring.
Good evening.
And I'll be your host, Tikshirult. This week we'll discuss the law entitled Protection of Human Rights on Social Media, the outcomes of the evidence analysis hearing held for the development bank cases, and the transparency of courts in Mongolia. So, a new legislation named the Protection of Human Rights on Social Media was introduced by Mr. Otrel, the Minister of Digital Development and Communications, on January 17th. The explanation behind the introduction of this law was that it would crack down on social media harassment, but civil rights organizations see this move as a move to prevent the circulation of free speech and opinions held by citizens. The law did not pass through regular parliamentary procedures such as a public hearing, and 40 out of the 52 lawmakers that were present in parliament were enough to pass the legislation, since the ruling party has a supermajority in parliament. And the law is scheduled to come into effect on February 1st, so next week. So it has drawn a lot of controversy, since a lot of people are seeing that it impedes with our freedom of speech by limiting what we can and cannot say on social media. So what do you think of this law?
Indeed, this law is completely dividing the people, and people, really, majority finds that this is really, truly, clearly violation of human rights, not only protecting human rights, but it is limiting human rights, in particular the right of the free speech, freedom of speech. Because freedom of speech is the first freedom without which the rest of freedom does not exist. So I find three things in here. First, now, if this law will be approved by the president, it will be law and it will be followed from February 1st. I mean, only a few days. And we do expect president saying he's either veto or support. Hopefully veto. First, in these circumstances, there will be the state, not court, will presume who is guilty. And this is a violation of the main constitutional provision, which says that every person is presumed innocent until proven guilty by a court, by due process of law. That's a provision in Mongolian constitutions. And nowadays, after this law, the ministry or some manager in this unit of public relations under communication, digital development and communication ministry will decide within 72 hours. They will discuss among each other, and then whether this is that particular content of a person. After claim, somebody will claim that this is violating that. It's, some call it erroneous content, but I think it's infringing content, infringing certain laws or regulations content. And whether it's infringing or not, it will be decided within 72 hours by that unit. And if they find really it's infringement, then they will address, looks like in this case, Facebook, because Mongolia has 2.8 million Facebook users out of 3.3 million people. It's a quite high number. And Mongolia is really leaving sort of the society is networking through that only company work, Meta companies work, Facebook. Looks like they will address, and they will ask them either to cancel, delete, or hidden, whatever actions that Facebook should take it.
Well, Facebook or Meta has a lot of its own guidelines on what content you can and cannot post. So if once this law comes into effect, will Mongolia be able to create additional restrictions on top of Facebook's, or would would this not be possible? Like enforcement?
I don't think Facebook will make special restrictions for Mongolia because the Mongolian government had asked. It will be a huge loss of face of the Facebook. I don't think it will happen. Now the issue comes if how Mongolian government can enforce these decisions if Facebook say no. We will not. It is not. According to our restrictions, it is not the case. So that is a good question, and nobody has answer on that. Second, my take on that is a procedure issue of law approval in Mongolia. We have a law on law, how law is to be approved. It requires that particular laws need, based on the research, why we need the new law or amendments to the existing law. It should be based on serious research. And also based on what is there should be estimation on what is the result, what will be the consequences of this law, how much does it cost, and how do we enforce that law. All these criteria should be clear before the law comes to the final approval. The speaker knows that very well, but however, they have made a record. Just during 3 days, a law proposal was it's called emergency procedure of adopting a law. But according to our law, emergency procedure is happening only by the proposal of Prime Minister if a particular law is needed because it is damage or need for economic issues that may be threatening the national security, which is none of them. Any reasons they have brought is not economic issue, etc. So, knowing that, they proceed so fast within 3 days because they have majority seats in their parliament shows one thing. They are afraid of public opinion, in particular before the election in 2024. Even they may have early elections if they succeed to change constitutions, which may be. So that's what it is, how I see that.
The Minister of Digital Development and Communications has explained that this law has been in the works since 2017. So why did it need to be an emergency case if it was being prepared for almost 6 years?
Discussions is one thing. Submission and then approval within 2-3 days. It doesn't say that is the case. So it's really a very interesting legal incident in the country that when the ruling party, when they have a majority, they can change any law at any time with any speed. So my third take on that was, by the way, we should say also the Human Rights Commissions of Mongolia was not effective, was not strong enough appealing. Yes, they were only 3 days. As they announced that January 17th they have announced it. The public knew that the new law is coming. And then 18th they're submitting, and 19th discussing, and 20th approving. So this is a very interesting case. And the third, what I take is freedom of speech is clearly restricted now in Mongolia if this law will go on. It is a big damage to international reputation of the country. And it's certain big another block for attracting foreign direct investment, attracting also tourism. And who would come to the country? Maybe they can be violating the law, a specific law they don't know. So, I mean, their content can be found erroneous or infringing. Remember the very reason Mr. Uchiril said that it is because it's urgent because people, especially children, are the victims of crimes and infringements on social media platforms. harassment, the children's rights violations in the digital world in Mongolia keep increasing. True. But however, it doesn't make the whole parliament making this decision so fast. But it is not only covering a crime against children, but it also, for example, this infringement content includes, for example, if discrimination comes based on official positions. What does it mean? I mean, based on sex, sexual orientation, races, ideology, religion, I understand. Mm-hmm. But this particular word embedded in official position directly and clearly shows that one cannot say own thoughts about particular public officer who has these official positions. Mm-hmm. So this is a quite alarming statement, and probably the ruling party is very careful about social media, and they are preparing for that election, as I said earlier. So these are three things, and the other interesting, another side observation is, if any service provider, in this case Facebook, has more than 300,000 users in Mongolia, they need to have the rep office in Mongolia. Mm-hmm. So, which is very hard to implement. Mm-hmm.
Let's move on to our third topic for this week. Last week there was a public hearing held by the ad hoc committee responsible for reviewing the implementation of projects and programs financed by the Development Bank of Mongolia. It was the first of 3 stages for these hearings and focused on the spending of 77 loans directly granted by the Development Bank in detail. So a week after the end of this hearing, what has come out of this hearing, and what were the outcomes of the hearing?
It was a very important hearing, I think, in strengthening further democracy of Mongolia, indeed. Mm-hmm. It was the first time parliamentarian hearings, public hearings happening in this country on very important, very urgent issue like development, Mongolian Development Bank of Mongolia, loan-related wrongdoings. And it took 5 days, January 16 to 20, and some 60 companies loan with 175 witnesses happened. Mm-hmm. The hearing itself, in the West, it's called also parliamentarian inquiry. Mm-hmm. This inquiry itself doesn't mean that they will approve the final verdict or guilty, etc. But the very fact that they have talked openly on public, online, these discussions, even the most remote area herdsmen could see how the people can play with public money, mm-hmm. with the help of politicians if they have any connections. So that was a very important thing, and it's true that some witnesses, though it is officially informed, they were not coming. That's a thing that we need to change. So what I was taking is, in general picture is, in general, the bank procedure of loan providing is very questionable. Some of them have very clear situation. The loan is not going to be used for what is intended to. Mm-hmm. Some large companies' owners took the money to their personal account, even by millions of dollars. And many of them, several of them at least, out of this 60 companies loan, they used it in casino. Mm-hmm. At least they say that they were not playing, but the casino in Hong Kong, Singapore, Macau, ATM, the transactions show that they have taken millions of dollars to play casino. One. Secondly, from the beginning, many people who got the loan company, they were not planning at all to pay back. That looks how shaky is the whole system works. And for them, it's like a political reward, maybe for their contribution to political party financing, maybe campaign financing of particular individuals who became later on more decision makers. So we learned also how relatives of this high-ranking position Mongolians are using, through which channel they were taking the money out, through their brothers, sisters, relatives, company. And so all this show that the Development Bank of Mongolia money, which is mostly bonds, proceeds of the bank, were really misused. That's one of the reasons why 1.8 trillion MNT became, it's almost more than half of the 60% of the total loan portfolio of this bank became bad loan. So good thing is they have started on time all this warning, and by now 1.1 trillion MNT are paid back. So that's why whether this will be approved or not by the president, it is a good showcase of Mongolian, how strong the willingness of politicians to protect our freedom.
Let's move on to our third topic for this week. The prosecutor's office of the capital city transferred the 80 people and 4 legal entities that were related to the development bank cases. So there were an associated 493 folders of evidence into these cases, and the head of the investigation bureau of the anti-corruption agency said that there are current members of parliament and former members of parliament in the list of people that are being investigated for these charges. So now that these cases have been transferred to the courts, how long do you think that it would take to settle these issues?
2 issues here. It's good that the prosecutors send this 80 persons, criminal cases, to the initial court of the Sukbata district. There are some around 500 files of these cases, which require many judges to work together, separately and together, because one is not capable of doing that for a short period. In general, Mongolian court system and Mongolian police and the court system, prosecutors, they were always saying that, this case is under investigation, full stop. Since it's under an investigation, I can say anything. So under this kind of words, many cases in this country for the last 20 years have slowly disappeared by many reasons, but people forget. They forget to demand. And I think the criminals, even themselves, have forgotten that they made crimes. So, good thing is this development bank is finally now at the court. But I remember the Irdinet 49% criminal case file was moving in 2018 to the court. Then court sent back. 2019, the same. 2020, the same. And finally, last November, the 12 persons criminal case was sent to prosecutor. And hopefully prosecutor is sending to court, which somehow the prosecutor office is not in a hurry. So, in general, Mongolian court system is really kind of bottleneck of the system today, it turned out, because the legal cases are not solved at the court. So people demand from the court system 2 things. One, don't keep that files very long. Not for years at least. Yeah, it is an issue of the court capacity, how many judges we have, how many cases can be solved at once. So there is some 13,000 cases come to the court. Only 300 or so are solved or resolved by the court. So it's clearly that there is not enough capacity. But on the other hand, why all these cases to go to only Sukbata district court? It should go to another court, another district, so that the people have more even. Because Sukbata district is a district where almost all government offices, all companies' headquarters, offices are here in the Sukbata square. And that's why they go to this Sukbata district. Sukbata square. Because all offices, government offices, companies are situated in Sukbata district. All criminal cases related to these companies' offices, corruptions go to that district. So I wish these cases are also be discussed at another district so that a judge has a less load of work on that. It's one. Please don't keep that long, as they do now. And second, in Mongolia, the judge decided whether the procedure will go open or closed. And mostly they decided it is going to close. But there is certain law which the judge making decisions. For example, the children violence or children's rape, this kind of cases to be discussed in closed way. But the corruption cases must be discussed. The procedure should go open. Yep, there is also capacity of rooms, maybe how many people can they accommodate. But in that case, they can clearly announce before the court how many people can the office, the room can take. They say 50, and the first come, first in. That or many criminal cases to be online. All the procedure should go online. It will be very good for any person, any Mongolian, all around the country to believe stronger in the capacity of the court system, justice system, and will have more trust on it.
A lot of countries during the COVID-19 pandemic period were holding courts online for people to see, but Mongolia has not done that yet so far, correct?
So it will be a very good chance. At the end, I would like to point out that after the Prime Minister had opened the case of coal theft, there is a very strong opposition from inside the ruling party, the other parties, people who involved in this whole thefts things. And they are very strongly opposing the current government. They try to get resigned, this government. So there is even this kind of statements are all on, you can find on Mongolian media. And but at the last parliament sessions, when Prime Minister Oyun Yurden said that I will fight until the end, I will stop this Manang mafia, and etc. This kind of political events happening in Mongolia now show that democracy is not that easy. But however, we have that opportunity to discuss it openly. And Mongolians believe that we're finding these corruptions. We are fighting. We should fight. We change if necessary. So this kind of democratic spirit is alive in the country, which is a good asset, I believe, for better Mongolia.
Well, this has been it for this week's Defacto Review. We presented the 3 most important topics that are happening here in Mongolia this week.
Thank you very much for being with us. Watch us next week again at the same time. Thank you.